Yes. Everybody, everybody, all right. Yeah.
Okay, so I got it. Okay. Yeah, I'll make it. Okay.
No.
Hi, all right.
I don't remember. It's.
Yes.
Jim. Just a few minutes.
I mean, that's what everyone's saying. Yeah. Yeah. That's what it's saying. No, I don't care. I just thought it was awesome. So that way.
As our service is about to begin, I ask that everyone please make sure their cell phones are on silent. Thank you.
Good morning, beloved friends and family. Ken and David, Daniel, Jacob, Jamie, and Scott. We assembled this morning to say shalom to Susan as we lay her to her final rest. We're honored that so many of you are here to join in this tribute, in this celebration in many ways of a short life, but a life that was filled with so many blessings and she touched so many people. I'm Rabbi Steve Kay. I start with a reading from the book of Isaiah. The prophet said, Kol makra v'makra, Kol basar chatzitz v'chol hasto, ki tzitz hazeh yavesh al tzir naval, Echin hatzir am, yavesh al tzir naval tzitz, v'dvar Elohenu yakum le'olam. A voice says, cry out, and I say, what shall I cry? All flesh is grass, all its beauty is like the flower of the field. The grass withers, the flower fades when the wind of the Lord blows upon it. Sure, the grass withers, the flower fades, but the word of our God shall endure forever. Often when we think about Psalms, and we think particularly about the Psalms that refer to the beauty of the world around us, the psalmist talked about the power of lifting up our eyes to the hills and the mountains. And in my remarks, I'll share how much Susan loved the beauty of Colorado. And so when we think about the psalmist, they're talking about the Judean hills. And no matter where we are, no matter what our religious affiliation or thought is, that we cannot not stand and look out on a beautiful Colorado day like today and feel God's presence and see the power of the mountains and the beauty. First in Hebrew, I read the words, 121st Psalm. As I enai elachari me'en yavo esri, Ezraim me'im Adonai ose shemam va'aretz, ayatein lamut reglecha ainum shemrecha, hine lo yunum v'lo yishan shomer Yisrael, anet shmercha anet tzilcha nimincha, yemem hashemesh lo yakeka v'ruch balala, anai yishmor mikol ra, shmor nafshecha tsecha, v'oacha, yatav olam. I lift up my eyes to the hills. I lift up my eyes to the mountains, and where does my help come? My help comes from God who has made heaven and earth. God will not let your foot be moved. God who keeps you will not slumber nor sleep. God who keeps you is your keeper. God is your shade on your right hand. The sun shall not smite you by day, nor the moon by night. The Lord will keep you from all evil. God will keep your going out and your coming in from this time forth and forevermore. Who shall ascend the mountain of the Lord, and who shall stand in God's holy place? This woman that has clean hands and a pure heart, who has not taken God's name in vain. She who has not sworn deceitfully. She that walks uprightly and works righteousness and speaks truth in her heart. That has no slander upon her tongue, nor does evil to her fellow, nor takes up reproach against her neighbor. Happy is this woman that greatly fears God, that greatly delights in God's commandments. Unto the upright she shines with fullness, gracious, and compassion. There is an Israeli poet by the name of Zelda, and she talks about the power of a name. And through our lives, we're called many different names. Sometimes we're blessed, as Ken, you were to be called, not just a husband, but a dear and cherished friend, called a mother, mother-in-law, grandmother, friend, and someone whom we loved in different ways. And so Zelda says these words, L'chol ish yesh shem shenatan lo le'elohim. Each one of us is given a name. We are given a name by God, and we are given a name by our mother, and given a name by our father. We each have a name given by our nature and by our smile, and given by our attire. Each of us is given a name by the stars, and a name given by what our friends call us. We each have a name given by our sins and given by our yearnings. We each have a name given by the enemies and given by our love. We each have a name given by our celebrations and given by our work. We each have a name given by the seasons and given by our blindness. We each have a name given by the sea and now given by our death. One of the 10 commandments, the fifth commandment, is kabed et avicha v'et imecha, to give honor to father and mother, and to speak, to offer words of hesped, words of honor. We're going to call upon Jamie and then David and then Mark to share words to honor Susan.
Well, I already lost the bet because I cried first. Thank you all so much for being with us, our family today, as we honor my mom. She touched so many lives and was so loved. Having each of you join us who live near and who live far, it means so much to our family. Last week, I got a call from the bishop of my friend's church, who was alerted that our family was in need. He wanted to just spend some time talking and being there to offer support. I was at a loss for words, if you can actually believe that. As I was telling him how grateful I was for the way that everyone has been showing up for my family, I didn't know what that word was. And he said, the word is humanity. And the definition of humanity is compassion, sympathetic, or generous behavior. I know these words describe each and every person with us today. You've contributed so much in so many ways to make my mom as comfortable and happy as possible. So thank you. The biggest thank you goes to her beloved husband and my dad, Ken. For 42 years, they took their vows very seriously, especially in sickness and in health. They set the bar very high for what a relationship was supposed to look like. In health, they biked, they hiked, they skied, they traveled, and most of all, they laughed. In sickness, they didn't leave each other's side. They took care of each other in ways that most are not capable. And I'm forever grateful for the endless care that Ken gave to my mom over the last year. My mom loved her family more than anything. And the support that we all gave to each other and will continue to give will be unconditional. Ken, Scott, David, Tara, Jacob, Zachary, Daniel, Jill, Lucia, Mark and Elaine, and of course, Enzo. we will all be able to move forward knowing that we have each other. So I know that many of my friends and colleagues really didn't understand why I flew to Denver every couple of weeks to be with my mom. The reason why is because my mom supported me in everything I did. She was my biggest cheerleader. She showed up for me every single day of my life. There was not a single day that I did not feel her love and support. After high school, I started speaking to my mom first thing every morning. This just made sense since I saw her for breakfast every morning of my life growing up. I know the 7:30 daily calls will be what I miss the most, her calling me Cookie Seabird. She knew if I had a busy day, dinner with Scott or a friend, or going to some fun event, and she'd want a full recap the next morning. She raised me to be fiercely independent. Sometimes she said I took it a little too far. Boy, was she happy when I met Scott. She said that she would rest easier knowing that I wouldn't be alone. It did take 43 years. And found the greatest guy to spend the rest of my life with. And he appreciated my strong will. She encouraged my competitive drive. Sports were always promoted. Musical instruments and singing were not. I think everyone should thank her for that. Both as a kid and as an adult, my mom didn't let me ever win a game. I had to actually really win it on my own, and this has served me very well. My recent trips home, we were doing walks. While I was walking, she was rolling. And I would tell her how lucky I was that she was my mom. And I would always share at least 3 things that I got from her. For example, she taught me how to be the best friend to everyone. She also taught me why it's so important to be generous and to be kind. And I would always tell her how grateful I was that she passed along very amazing genes. She was one of the most beautiful, vibrant, active, and social people that I've ever known. She was also one of the best dressed. She took so much pride in her appearance, yet she was not the least bit fancy. She was always everyone's best friend, and she made every single one of our friends feel like they were part of our family. The hardest days came when she couldn't walk or talk, but don't worry, her hair was still perfect. I used her hairspray today, by the way. Now I know why it never moved. I was very lucky to have almost 50 years with the most amazing woman that I got to call my mom. I will miss her every day for the rest of my life. I also know that she will be there to guide me and to shine her light on me. So next I'm going to read a poem that my best friend shared with me yesterday, and I might not get through it. So if I don't, I'm happy to send it to anybody who wants to see it. I'll stop if I can't. It's called From a Mother to Her Girls. It's written by the rabbi that used to be at Deborah and Craig's temple. The morning you wake to bury me, you wonder what to wear. The sun may be shining, or it will rain. It may be winter or not. Sorry, I can't see. You'll say to yourself, black, aren't you supposed to wear black? And then you'll remember all the times that we went shopping to buy clothes together for prom, homecoming, just another pair of jeans, another sweater, another pair of shoes. You'll remember how I loved to dress you, how beautiful you were in my eyes. The morning you wake to bury me, you will look in the mirror in disbelief. You'll reach for some makeup or not. I am my mother's daughter, so I'm wearing makeup. And you won't believe that this is the morning that you will bury your mother, but it is. And as you gaze into that mirror and shed a tear or not, but look carefully, for hiding your expression, you will find mine. You will see me in your eyes, in the way that you laugh, in the way that you feel when you think of God, and the love and struggle. Look into the mirror and you will see me in a look or in the way you hold your mouth or stand a little bent or maybe straight, but you will see me. So let me tell you one last time before you dress what to wear. Put on any old thing, black or red, skirt or pants, Despite what I told you all these years, it doesn't really matter, because I want you to dress yourself in honor and dignity, dress yourself in confidence and self-love. We're a sense of obligation to do for this world, for you are one of the lucky ones, and there is so much for you to do to fix. Take care of each other. Take care of your heart, of your soul. Talk to God for humility and compassion. When you wake today, put on a strong sense of self, courage, and understanding. I am sorry. Forgive me. I am sorry. Stand clothed in a gown of forgiveness, dressed like an angel would be, showing compassion and unconditional love. For at that very moment, all that will be left of me to give is love. Love.
I wrote this, never proofread it, and didn't read through it after I read it. So I hope it delivers exactly the way I meant it. Unapologetically magnificent. This is how my girlfriend Tara described my mother after knowing her for just 6 months. And I couldn't think of a better way to put it. No one in this room, and I apologize for not looking up or I won't get through it. No one in this room doesn't know the relationship. No one in this room doesn't not know the relationship I had with my mother. I, like Jamie, spoke to her every day for an hour or longer. Jamie and I secretly competed to see who could get her on the phone first thing in the morning, which ultimately didn't matter as my mother hung up on me to talk to Jamie. So I'd like to believe it was because I was local, but I'm not sure what difference that makes. No one knew how to talk me off the ledge. No one knew how to talk me off the ledge like she did. And looking back, I'm out on the ledge a lot more than I thought I ever was. Everyone in this room also knows how I feel about them. I warned Joyce Contis years before my mother got sick that should anything ever happen, she better be prepared to step in and have her family grow a little bit bigger. So I called Joyce on Sunday and told her to make room in the house. I have a dozen of my best friends in this room. Some my mom, I use the word only, but some my mom only knew for 14 or 15 years, the rest more than 30. Every time I told her I just got off the phone with one of them or saw one of them, she always asked how her other children or how her other child was and to send them her love. My mom always told me, that changed the subject a little. My mom always told me that she talked to her mom, my grandma Helen, very often. She never did tell me the content, just that that was sort of her thing. I've spoken to my mother a dozen times this week or probably more, the last one being in the bathroom a few minutes ago. As most of you know, at the end, she couldn't, like Jamie just mentioned, she couldn't eat, walk, or talk. And so far, I've told her that I know she's already made 1 million friends. I hope she's gotten a chance to eat everything she's missed out on lately, and that she and her new friends have taken long walks on the beach, which I know they have. Stop crying, Lindsay. Needless to say, I already miss her dearly, and I'll tell her in just a little bit next time I talk to her how much love was in this room. I can't thank everyone enough in this room and on Zoom. I can't thank you enough and just how appreciative our family is for you being here. My father, Ken, gets the hero badge for the years of nonstop care he gave to my mother, and Jamie and Scott for regaining their diamond medallion membership for coming to Colorado so many times. to visit her through her through our deal with these shitty diseases. I love everyone, and again, thank you for coming.
When I first wrote this, I started it with good morning. It's kind of anything but. It's a really sad morning. But as the rabbi said, my aunt loved the weather in Colorado. She used to say to me all the time, you got to come to Colorado. I always did want to come to Colorado. But for those of you that don't know me, my name is Mark Weiss. I'm Susan's nephew from her older brother, Lenny, and she was my godmother. And I'm going to keep this brief, not because you'd be bored, because I could talk about my aunt as Jamie did, as David did. I could talk about my aunt for hours. So it's not because you'd be bored, but more so because I don't think I could keep it together for all that long. My Aunt Susan has been a blessing in my life and my wife and daughter's lives as well. My mom knew what she was doing when she asked my aunt to be my godmother 56 plus years ago. Forgive me, I cannot look up. Because for the last 31 years, after I lost my mom, my Aunt Susan has been just that. An amazing aunt, godmother, second mom, and wonderful great aunt to my daughters, Rebecca and Alyssa. They adored her. And I know how much she loved all of us and how proud she was of us. I'm sorry, I can't do this. She always found time for us. Jamie and David were gracious enough to share her love. For that, I thank you both. And Uncle Ken, thank you. Thank you all, because I loved my aunt more than anything in the world, next to my own family. That's a whole lot of drama for her to keep track of and still be supportive to us all. Most of it David's drama, but let's be fair. Aunt Susan, I know you're up there with Granny Helen and my mom drinking coffee. You guys are going to enjoy this. Noshing on mandel bread and planning a fantastic brisket dinner, all while reminiscing. Please tell them I love them and I'll love and miss you forever. Thank you.
You truly fulfilled the words, the actions, the commandment to give honor, because honor comes from the word kavod, which also means heavy. And sometimes when we have to speak of a eulogy or someone we love, our hearts are heavy, our souls are heavy, they're filled with pain. It's a burden, but not in the sense of being burdensome. We feel the pain as we do that, and so many wonderful stories. And I think that each of you can go on, and as I heard, a sense of resiliency. I think your mom is in each one of you in so many kinds of ways. She seems like, as we say in our tradition, a true Eshet Chayal, a woman of valor. The word Eshet Chayal, the word Chayal means a warrior. And I think with that, when someone has to deal with illness and sickness, both in their own life and dealing with their partner's illness, that you have to be a warrior to protect what's cherished and important. And Ken, I think, in any marriage, you fight. Fighting's good in marriage, because making up is the best part, because you reach new levels of excellence and striving. And so if you there for one another in illness and in health and in blessings and things, she was truly an Eshet Chayal. Cousin Layla in Israel, who is on Zoom, wrote these words for us to share with love. She said, knowing someone who brought so much light into our lives is such an honor and joy. Susan always had a ready smile. Her golden heart and was most generous with her kind and positive words. When my family moved to Colorado, it was our great fortune that Ken and Susan were here. My kids were little with no local grandparents, aunts, or uncles. So who showed up to preschool graduation for my son? Ken and Susan. Who stepped in at grandmother's day, even though she was too young? Cousin Susan. The mainstay of love in our lives, no matter what was happening. Susan was quick to cheer, encourage, and shine her big heart on all of us. On the Jewish calendar, we are in the midst of the holiday of Sukkot, which I'll refer to in just a few moments. I found her auspicious that she passed away next to the next world during the season of our joy. It seems like she's sending a deep message to us to focus on the good and the joy that our life brings. The ripples of Susan's light and goodness continue to radiate and warm this world and all those who are privileged to know her, to love her, and to be loved by her. And I think that is the theme that I heard in so many ways, that Rabbi Chaim Stern wrote these words. He said, "It is a fearful thing to love what death can touch. A fearful thing to love, hope, dream, and to be. A holy thing, a thing for fools is, and a holy thing to love. For your life has lived in me. Your laugh once lifted me. Your word was gift to me. To remember this brings painful joy. 'Tis a human thing, love, a holy thing to love, what death has touched." As a rabbi, when you don't know the person whose funeral you're standing at, you often turn to the family to get a glimpse, a snapshot in just a little bit of time, in essence. So the person is not a stranger. And when I was done with our conversation, I did not feel that Susan was a stranger. She was someone who I think I would have enjoyed spending time with, as I said, as a true Eshet Chayil, a woman of valor. As Cousin said, we're now observing the fourth day of the holiday of Sukkot, the fall harvest festival that occurs a few days after Yom Kippur, the holiest of days on our calendar, as we say Shalom to Susan. I know in my conversations with Ken, David, Jamie, Scott, that Susan was not necessarily an observant or religious person when it came to Judaism. Yet Judaism was an integral part of her life and how she lived her life, the values of her sacred partnership with Ken, and how she raised David and Jamie and her grandchildren. Over the years, Susan and Ken were connected with Reformed congregation when you lived in Florida, and then here in Denver at Temple Emmanuel and Temple Sinai. As many of you know, one can connect with their religious tradition, their spirituality in many places. And those places for so many of us today are not always within the confines of a sanctuary. Colorado, as we know, has become a mecca for an array of reasons. 360 days of sun a year, our weather, our mountains, and the range of outdoor activities that one can do in any day. You can wake up in an early spring morning, ski at A Basin, stop off at a golf course on your way home and get in a quick 9 and head to a Rockies game, which I won't speak about the Rockies. And that's what we call a Colorado trifecta. Our state has one of the largest growing numbers of a faith tradition that now has a formal name. According to the Gallup organization, we are now the capital for SBNRs, spiritual but not religious. SBNRs often seek and find their connection with the transcendence, often in the outdoors. Many SBNRs use these foundations of their own religious tradition as a base for the journey as they seek new summits. Susan, as we had heard, had a passion for the outdoors. Ken and Susan were avid skiers, time in Steamboat Springs, and bicycle riders here in Castle Pines, or whenever they would travel, they would rent bikes to see the local sights, have a sense of adventure. She had a passion for tennis, where she met her beloved Ken 42 years ago. She loved college football, her Florida teams, and Alabama too. Susan, one could say, was always on the go, filling her life by exploring, adventuring, and seeking new places to meet people. Ken, you were blessed not only to have a great travel partner seeking new adventures, you had a life partner, a best and cherished friend who cared for you in your times of need and whom you cared for in her times of need. A marriage of care and mutual respect. In Yiddish, we call that person your beshert. Ken, we feel your pain and we mourn with you, and your friends are here to support you as you mourn your beloved. And as much as Susan loved the outdoors, I think she loved people more, is what I heard. One of the reasons that so many of you are here at Feldman's is watching live stream is because somehow Susan touched your life. Susan was a people person, always listening, asking good and probing questions, and so often just checking in on you. Susan, like many of us, as you heard, had her morning rituals, and it was often a toss-up to who her favorite child was. As you heard, she had her morning phone call, and one of them would say, if the other was on the phone, "Hang up, Mom, and talk with me. I'm your favorite child." If truth be told, Susan was blessed to have two favorite children. Not personally knowing Susan, I gained a strong sense in my conversation with you and some of you before the service that Susan made each of us feel like her favorite. She paid attention, she listened, and most of all, she cared. A recent example of her love for others was reciprocated at the recent ALS walk that was in the neighborhood. So many of you came out to show your support and your love for her. Friends and neighbors said, "You matter, and we care for you. You matter, and we care for you." During this holiday of Sukkot, there are two significant rituals, and both often resonate with those who love the outdoors. We build a temporary hut outside our home for 7 days. We eat in the sukkah. We invite guests into our sukkah as a sign of hospitality, and some even sleep in the sukkah. The sukkah reminds us of the Israelites' journey out of Egypt, but it also reminds us of how our lives are temporary, the harshness of the outdoor elements. And we are guided by the sages to understand that our lives are ever too fragile, and we must take care of ourselves and be nurtured and supported by others in our family and our community. And the reality is, like the sukkah comes down, so too our lives come to their final days. During Susan's illness, so many of you were there to support her, and you were her restraining walls of her sukkah. And the second ritual of Sukkot is holding of the lulav and the etrog. These four species in question are the etrog. It is a citron. It looks a little bit like a lemon. If you ever go to the Botanic Gardens right outside the main doors, Temple Emmanuel grows them every year, and they use them for religious services. Just a nice little fact to know. There's a palm branch in Hebrew called the lulav, and two willow branches, aravot, and the three myrtle branches, the chasidim. The palm, willow, and myrtle branches are bound together and referred together as the lulav. It looks like a little bit, for those who Palm Sunday, if you think about what that ritual looks like. And the etrog is held separately. So we take the lulav and the etrog and we hold them in our hand, and we recite a blessing as we point in all the 6 directions: east, south, west, north, up and down, symbolizing the fact that God's presence is everywhere, and we have the ability to make a difference in the world as we move our body through it. What I find particularly interesting and spiritual about this ritual is that the Jewish mystics believe that the lulav and the 3 species represent our body. The eyes, mouth, spine, and the etrog is our heart. For me, this is an ideal image of how we might think of Susan today. When we hold the lulav and the etrog, we're reminded of Susan's totality, what she saw with her eyes. She saw kindness and goodness. The words that flowed from her mouth, the words of inspiration, of being a family member and welcoming others in. Her ability to be flexible in the midst of changes. Health can be a challenge, and we need to be flexible. And most of all, what I heard about her was her tender and caring heart, much like the etrog. Zichrona livracha. May Susan's memory always be a blessing. And let us say, Amen. Many of you spoke about Susan's journey, and few of us know what the world to come might look like or be, and we have our own dreams and aspirations. The rabbis in a piece of text called Exodus Rabbah 48:1 say the following. 2 ships were sailing near the shore. One was headed toward the open sea, and the other was headed toward the harbor. Everyone was cheering the outgoing ship, but very few cheered the incoming ship. A wise man observing the scene felt it to be a great contradiction. He said that the outgoing ship should not be cheered, for nobody knows what lies in wait for it, what stormy seas it might encounter, how it weather the storms of its voyage. But he continued, everyone should cheer the incoming ship, since it has clearly reached port safely, having concluded its journey in shalom, in peace. And Susan has concluded her journey in shalom and in peace. We pause for a moment for just some silent thought or reflection before I'll ask you to join with me in the words of the 23rd Psalm. Mizmor LaDavid and Roi. Please join with me. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He lead me in right paths for the sake of his name, even when I walk in the valley of the shadow of death. I shall fear no evil, for you are with me, with rod and staff you comfort me. You set a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You've anointed my head with oil, my cup overflows. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever. At the rising of the sun and its going down, we remember Susan. At the blowing of the wind and the chill of winter, we remember Susan. At the opening of the buds and the rebirth of spring, we remember Susan. At the blueness of the skies and the warmth of summer, we remember Susan. When our phone does not ring at 7 o'clock in the morning, 6 o'clock in the morning, California time, 7 here, we remember Susan. When we think about what we should wear at her funeral, we remember Susan. When we are weary and in need of strength, we remember her. We're lost and sick at heart, we remember her. We understand what it means to face adversity in health and come back again, we remember her. We remember how precious friends are, and to forgive and to live in sacred community, we remember her. We have decisions that are difficult to make, we remember her. As long as we live, Susan too will live, as she lives in our heart, as we now remember her. I ask you to rise in the memorial prayers. El Malei Rachamim, Shochem Benomim, Hametzim Menucha Nechuna, Tachat Knefecha Shechina, Im Kidoshim Utorim Kizara Harakir Mizarim at Nishmat Shevabat Mordechai Shlacha La'alamal Ba'al Harachamim Yaseta Besetivimim ויצרה ביצרו החיים ונשמתה הנייכון הלכתה ותנוח בשלום המזכבה ונאמר Amen. May the source of life, the foundation of all being, open our hearts to compassion and our eyes to wisdom, that we might glimpse in perfect peace and sadness the way of all things. May Susan's memory be a blessing for us, and we never let the light of her life dim in our hearts. May we remember Susan for all of her worthy and righteous deeds, that her memory be ever bound up in the bond of eternal life. God is our source and our destination, our beginning and our end. May Susan's death awaken us to this truth and the bond of love that we had shared and share with her, not to be severed in sorrow. Zichrona levarcha, may she rest in peace. And together we say, Amen. We ask the family to join the words of the mourners Kaddish that are found before you. Yit Gadal, Yit Gadash, Shemei Rabbah, Yalma Divrach Yurte, Yalmich Makute, V'chayechon V'chayim D'chol Beit Yisrael, V'galav Man Gariv Imru, Amen. Yehei Shmei Rabbah Mevarach Le'olam Omea Omaya, Yit Barach V'yishtabach, Yit Ba'ar, Yit Maman, Yit Naseh, Yitara, Yitaleh, Yitalal, Shmei Kedusha, Barichu, Le'ela Min Kor Berchata V'shirata, Tush B'chata V'nechamata, Damiram B'yama V'imru, Amen. Yehei Shlama Rabba Min Shemaya, V'chayim Aleinu V'yakol Yisrael V'imru, Amen. Oseh Shalom B'marav, U'ya'aseh Shalom, Aleinu V'yakol Yisrael V'imru, Amen. May the source of peace and comfort to all who mourn and to all who bereaved, and as a sacred community, let us say Amen. Please be seated and we'll offer a final reading and let you know that you're invited back to the family home. Sheets of paper available out in the lobby with the address of 1353 Castle Point Circle in Castle Pines. And the family welcomes you to enjoy them this afternoon. At this moment, which bears the memory of our beloved Susan, let us join in love and remembrance. A link has been broken in the chain which has bound you all together, yet strong bonds of home and love hold you each to one another. Eternal God, we give thanks for the blessings of her life, of companionship, memory, and stories we have to tell. Eternal God, we are grateful for the strength and faith that sustains us in this, our time of bereavement. Though sorrow lingers, we have learned that love is stronger than death. Though she is beyond our sight, we do not despair, for we send Susan in our hearts as a living presence. Zikron al-Livracha, may your memory always be a blessing. And let us say, Amen. We'll be given directions from the funeral home. Thank you for joining with us today. Our service is concluded.
Okay, thank you so much, Rabbi. So just to reiterate, the family will be accepting condolence calls and sitting Shiva this afternoon. We have a whole bunch of ways to get directions down to the house right out front. But in the meantime, especially if you can't make it, please feel free to spend some time together. The place is yours, and I'll be here to help if anything comes up. Take care.
You're free to move about. The light is green.